Hey, JB, I heard there's a celebration. You know me, I always come prepared. I got a little wine for the celebration going
Hey,
on here. Hey, what are we celebrating, though? I didn't get that part of the memo.
it's actually D3 week. So this is the week of the year where we celebrate any and all things D3. Hashtag D3 week, hashtag YD3, hashtag D3FB, like our show, and the D3FB Huddle.
I like it. Okay, so maybe the wine isn't the best idea. Let me put that to the side. Although might be drinking that later, the way this week's going. But for those
Yeah.
that don't know what D3 week is, this is number 10, I believe, the 10th annual D3 week. Explain to the folks because it seems kind of like a odd little distinction to make, but I think you know more than anybody more than most what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are the biggest division out there. I mean, 400 or 500 some odd schools across the country. The true student athlete experience, and it's one where most of our champions are named on the field. Although, fortunately, this week we saw a little diversion from that, and we'll get into that a little more. And it's been a great spring season of some exciting championship games. We're going to talk to Presley Egbers, the quarterback from Randolph-Macon, who had one of the most amazing walk-off overtime plays that I've ever seen and helped lead his team to an ODAC title. A couple other conferences are starting to wrap up their conference races out in Ohio. The OAC, the Heartland is going to start wrapping up soon. The PAC from Pennsylvania is not too far behind. You got the NACC out there in the Midwest. So we're kind of getting towards the last couple of weeks of the spring season. We're hoping to see maybe other couple of games pop up here. But in the meantime, we're trying to give you all the highlights from what happened in week 9 and talk about some of the different storylines that are kind of coming into week 10. D3 week.
Sounds like we got a lot to do. One note, the reason the show was founded was on the YD3 principle of the student athletes deserve the recognition just because they're not Division One, FBS or Division One overall. Does not mean they shouldn't get the credit for playing for the love of the game at the end of the day, and that's why we are here and present as many student athletes as we do. And as you said, Presley Egbers is probably one of the best examples of that. When you hear his interview or see it in a little bit, you're gonna be like, wow. If we judged athletes on poise and posture, he's Division One All-America right there, based on that
Yeah.
alone. But nonetheless, he is a star in D3. We're not stars in D3. We are more infamous than famous on most days. So let's show people why on this episode number 13 of season 13. It's double 13s of In the Huddle. Okay, so a little housekeeping at the front of the show. We had intended on bringing an interview with Coach Khayat of Brevard on this show. The interview is just so long and not cuttable because of the information presented is so good. So you're going to see that interview. Here's just a screenshot of it from earlier that we did, this interview with Coach Khayat. On Wednesday at noontime, we're going to drop that episode. So make sure to tune in for that. Again, a lot of good information about the whole USA South controversy. We'll have that discussion there. We will not be running clips of the USA South games from this weekend because we don't feel comfortable, to be honest with you, at this time to use any
Yeah.
property of the USA South in our show. There are cease and desist letters going around from the conference to the schools, and we don't know where this is going to end up ultimately. So we will have the scores and stats on the Crunchtime slides, but that's it under the circumstances. We're disappointed in that, but at the same time, we're not going to get ourselves in trouble in this whole thing. for any reason, or have to fight a fight like that.
Any more than we already have.
Yeah, seriously. There's a limit here to what we're going to go through on this too. But if you have concerns, address them to Tom Hart, etc., at the USA South. We will, though, as usual, or as the recent usual, do a Friday show with schedule of Week 10 and predictions that I feel like I had a good week last week. I didn't check, and then I got the COVID shot.
We tied again. Although you beat me the week before, but we tied. I think we both went 8-1. I hit on the Mount St. Joe's, and you hit on the Randolph-Macon picks, but otherwise pretty even. But you're still up, so I'll give you that. Well, let's see if that can change in the next week. But it was a really competitive weekend, and there were some really great championship quality games. This is sort of championship season now in the spring. We're going to see some conference races start to wrap up. The ODAC season was a great one, and congratulations to Randolph-Macon. We'll talk a little more about that in just a few minutes.
Pen in hand, notes in hand, more notes in hand.
Here we go.
Duncan's
it's like
almost
you're a lawyer
gone.
Or something.
I think it's that time. Yeah. Apparently, the word has gotten out because Tom Hart said, as you probably know, free speech can be limited. I'm guessing he's thinking because I'm a lawyer.
Maybe.
You know what? Yes, I am. But there are certain aspects of the law I try to avoid. Family law is one of them, so please don't call me on that. Traffic court's another. Don't call me on that. And constitutional law, I mean, that can be a real lot of fun for those out there. Let's go to football. It's time for Crunch Time for week number 9. Let's start with the Thursday games. No video to show you here, but we're going to talk briefly here about Carnegie Mellon at Waynesburg, and Carnegie Mellon just rolled over Waynesburg 51-0, outgaining them 455-81 on the field. Ben Armbruster, 7 catches, 117, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions by Carnegie Mellon's defense. Also, in a game that we alluded to on Friday, Washington Jefferson only beats Geneva 20-6. There were 93 rushing plays in this game total. Joey Caroli with 22 rushes, 138 yards, and a touchdown. And quarterback Amos Luptak had 28 rushes, 115 yards, and a touchdown. That's unheard of. If you think of a football game, like 120 plays generally in a football game, maybe less than all rushes, that's a huge percentage. In the CCIW, we'll talk more about this conference later in Crunch Time. Carthage beats North Park as the homestanding team. Carthage was 21-0. Billy Dury, with a 19 for 34 day, 206, 1 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. But the Carthage defense, 6 sacks, interception, and held North Park to minus 24 rushing yards in the game. Great way to shut out a team right there.
24.
Let's go to the videotape finally, as Adrian and Olivet played one heck of a game. We're going to start this though. First, we'll say Adrian was down 21-3 in this game until 9 seconds left in the first half. 1-yard Jack Werser touchdown run made it 21-10 at halftime. Field goal later, 21-13. So Adrian's trying to come back in this game. In the fourth quarter, 8 seconds into it, Adrian's Henry Wilson gets a 34-yard touchdown pass from the aforementioned Werser. And the 2-point conversion pass by Henry Wilson was good, or to him. I always love how these box scores say it's by Henry Wilson. It was to him, and it was good. 21-21, tie game at that point. So an 18-point comeback by Adrian. 3:02 left. Adrian gets a 1-yard run again from Jack Werser. 28-21, Adrian leading. Olivet's Sequarius Ball, love the name, 10-yard pass from Caleb Jarrett. He makes it 28-27. Here's the extra point. It's good, but a penalty flag on the field.
False start?
False start was the call.
So the kick should have never happened.
So they line up again to do it, and obviously he's going to be good.
Jump.
Well,
they get back. Snap, hold, kick, and it might have been tipped, and it goes wide left. The kick is wide left. He missed it. Bulldogs by a point.
It's no good. The onside kick failed. The final score, 28-27 Adrian. Those kicking woes again. You see the stats on your screen.
Spring.
It's just been plaguing teams left, right, and center. And as I said, the stats right there for you for the different players and situations in that game. Let's do more video here as Wesley traveled to Christopher Newport. And this might be Wesley's last ever game. And the first half was really a defensive struggle, as seen here at the end of the first quarter. In the 2nd and 9 play, Xander Jedlick, the quarterback for Christopher Newport, is stripped of the ball after a 6-yard gain. Darren Matthews had forced it, and DeAndre Curry recovers it for Wesley. That led to a 16-play scoring drive in which Latrell McCants scored a 2-yard rushing touchdown. The only points of the half, and the extra point attempt was no good, so it was 6-0 at halftime. In the third quarter, Wesley took control midway through the third quarter as Latrell McCants, again from 10 yards out, gets the touchdown, makes it 14-0 Wesley. They were in control. Final score, 23-7 Wesley. McCants with 16 rushes, 91 yards, and those 2 touchdowns that we talked about. Montclair State, in the other NJAC game, beats William Patterson 28-0 as Montclair wins the NJAC North Division. Running back Bellany Mendez with 19 rushes, 111 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. Zach Saccone with 11 tackles and an interception. What's interesting to me here, JB, the NJAC seems to be in wrap-up mode here at this point, and we're crowning champions with very low numbers of games being played. But it's just been refreshing to see NJAC play of any kind.
Yeah, and ultimately it's better than nothing, and congrats to the Red Hawks on their North Division title. Obviously, Salisbury wrapped up the South Division the week before. And yeah, I mean, only 3 games. There could have been a few others here and there. There have been some cancellations, including what we thought was going to be a game down in Dover this weekend, but more on that in a little bit. But as far as East Region teams go, this was a huge opportunity that not really many East teams were afforded. So credit the NJAC for making it happen, and congrats to these teams for getting a very few of these games actually in.
Heidelberg and Otterbein faced off in the OAC on Friday night, and obviously an emotional game here after the passing of Curtis Hellman. They came out a little slow. We suggested this is one of the scenarios that can happen in these situations. Otterbein gets a 20-yard pass from Bryce Hall to Reed Tucker to take the early 7-0 lead. Heidelberg got a 37-yard Brendan Steckel field goal midway through the second, not pictured here. But just before halftime, that Maceo Matthews back at it again, a 66-yard touchdown pass from Drew Sims made it 10-7 Heidelberg. That was the halftime score, and after halftime, Maceo Matthews 15-yard pass from Drew Sims again. That made it 17-7 Heidelberg. Later in the third, just about 2 minutes later, Montavious Yerby with his 78-yard run, 24-7 Heidelberg. The final, Heidelberg wins it 44-14 on the road. Heidelberg scored 24 points total in the third quarter, outgained Otterbein 640 to 281 in total yards, and Drew Sims those 3 touchdowns and 1 on the ground in addition to it. Mount Union 20, Marietta 3. Very close game for most of this game. Marietta held Mount Union to 8 points in the first half specifically, and Braxton Plunk went 27 for 47, 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing. Mason McMillan with 13 tackles. Ohio Northern 35, Wilmington 22. ONU's remained undefeated at 3-0, we should note there. Brody Hahn with a 317 total yards night, 4 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. The defense had 7 sacks for ONU. I want to go back to you for a second, though. That Heidelberg game obviously was tough emotionally to watch for all parties involved. And I sent a note to Coach Donaldson saying I would have loved to hear your halftime speech as your team sort of underperformed in the first half. And he just gave it to the kids. He said the kids were the responsibility of coming back in this game. I didn't have to say anything. So they knew, obviously, to kick it up a notch.
Yeah, and they certainly did. I mean, over 600-something yards of offense. They just kind of came a alive, for lack of a better term, in the third quarter. It was like something just lit a fire underneath them, and they carried that momentum all the way to a pretty lopsided win. I'm sure it was a very cathartic experience for them after all the memorials and the challenges that they faced in the prior week. But I think, in Curtis's memory, this is exactly what he would have wanted them to do, and they went out and they won a big game.
We talked about it at the front of the show, the USA South. No clips here. We're just going to go through the scores and briefly discuss it. More on this situation, I guess we should say, tomorrow or Wednesday if you're watching this on Tuesday. Maryvale beats Averett 27-24 on Friday. Trevor Thomas, 15 for 24, 283 touchdowns and an interception. Bryce Jackson, 55 passes, completed 30 of them, 3 touchdowns, 331 yards, but 2 interceptions. Brevard beats North Carolina Wesleyan 44-14 as they move to 4-1 overall. Dalton Cole, 97 total yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Steve Hogan for Brevard, who we weren't sure if he'd be the starting quarterback or who would be exactly. 13 for 17, 204, 2 touchdowns, And Huntington wins what we call the de facto at this point championship game for the USA South, 31-20. Landon Cotney with 3 rushing touchdowns. Huntington had a great time of possession advantage, about 13 minutes. 18 tackles by Roderick Christian Jr. In that game. In a crossover game, Greensboro beats Sewanee 24-21. Sewanee technically an SAA team, and so that's why it's a crossover. Greensboro wins basically on a Zach Ellison 32-yard game-winning field goal. Remember the whole let the parents watch movement? His mother was the leader of that, Elizabeth Ellison. So everything comes full circle. Zach gets the game-winning field goal in his final collegiate game. Congratulations to him and his family on everything that happened this year with respect to that program and them. Let's talk about the Presley Egbers moment. But first, before we get to that moment, we have to tell you about the lead-up to it in the ODAC Championship as Emory and Henry traveled to Randolph-Macon. Tim Handratty had a 6-yard pass from Presley Egbers in the fourth quarter. We didn't have any scoring until the fourth quarter, folks. It was 0-0. Now it's 7-0 Randolph-Macon with 9:37 left in the fourth. About 5 minutes later, TJ Tester had a 5-yard pass from Hunter Taylor to tie the game 7-7. We went to overtime in this game. First one up was Emory and Henry. Zach Baber tries a 22-yard field goal and makes it. It's 10-7. Emory and Henry. You've heard about it. You know about it. Here we go.
We're in overtime, 10-7, Emory and Henry. Egbers lost the ball, picked it up in the air, and is going to score! The miracle at Day Field in overtime. And for the 12th time in school history, Randolph-Macon College football is your Old Dominion Athletic Conference champion. What a play. What do you call that? The bounce back?
I don't know. The ball came right back into his hands. As you can see, the Wash defenders, that's Phillips in the middle of the field, knowing that he had a chance to make a play on that ball.
Multiple ways to look at it. Multiple ways we're going to show it to you. And we'll show you again later on with the Presley Egbers interview. 13-10. I mean, you talk about Gonzaga's walk-off on Saturday night before losing the national championship game. This is a walk-off that was either you lose the championship or you win the championship. No second overtime probably in the equation once that ball was kind of fumbled in the air there. So 13-10 final. Randolph-Macon for the 12th time ODAC champions. Egbers 13-yard game-winning touchdown rush, as you saw. Taylor with a 27 for 49 day, 299. It's amazing that much yardage passing, but that few points as a result of it for Emory and Henry. Touchdown, interception, and Rice with 9 receptions, 111 yards for Emory and Henry. Also, Hampton-Sydney 49, Ferrum 21. As Hampton-Sydney finishes at 4-1. Caleb Smith 14 rushes, 82 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cole Becker 18 rushes, 108 yards, but and a touchdown. Billy Higgins from Ferrum, despite the loss, 20 tackles. That is the most we have seen this spring.
The most.
Hands down. Yeah, so great performance by him. And also in Mike Clark's final game as head coach, Bridgewater 22, Shenandoah 14. Coach Clark goes out a winner. He was a winner in so many ways without that happening, so it's fitting there. Jordan Burden and Deshaun Davis had 19 and 32-yard interception returns for touchdown, and Isaiah Farmer 9 tackles, tackle for loss, and game-winning interception. Let's go to the videotape again as we have the Greenville game here against Iowa Wesleyan. I want to say Ohio Wesleyan for the worst way, or in the worst way. But Greenville.
Lots of Wesleyans.
Yep, they were leading Iowa Wesleyan 14-7 at halftime. Greenville adds to that on a 12-yard Javian Smith interception return. The pick six made it 21-7. Iowa Wesleyan comes back a minute 40 later. Braden Ross with a 5-yard pass from Gavin Esquivel. They made it a 21-13 lead for Greenville. Then in the last play of the third quarter, Damian Tanilis gets a 31-yard pass from Gavin Esquivel. That's now a 21-19 game as the 2-point conversion rush fails. So now a 2-point game. Iowa Wesleyan again with Hezekiah Hunter. A 3-yard touchdown run made it 25-21 again after a failed 2-point conversion attempt by Iowa Wesleyan. Can Greenville bounce back? We've seen this happen so many times this season. Big leads lost, and then the team that gave up the lead finds a way. And Paul Garrett forgot. He didn't forget. Iowa Wesleyan forgot to leave secondary on this play, basically, because he busted through the line on a 4th and 1 play for a 61-yard touchdown run. Unreal. It's at that point 28-25 Greenville. And the last thing we're going to show you, well, we can't show you. Unfortunately, the video got lost at this point. This little chunk of video that we're missing.
Oh, man.
Gavin Esquivel's pass was intercepted by Jaden Apple-Gibbs at the goal line, and that ended the game. Greenville wins it 28-25. You can see the stats right there. A great UMAC game indeed. Also in the UMAC, Northwestern Minnesota with another great game against Minnesota Morris. A 27-23 win for Northwestern Minnesota. Marcus Reeb, he had a pass intercepted by Damon Clapper to win the game in the final minute. 3 sacks, 3 interceptions for the UNW defense in that game. Also, if we go to the NACC, I've got a heck of a game for you to see here, JB, and I think you were following this one a little bit, but I will take your comments on it when we get to it in a moment, and that is the Aurora versus Benedictine game. And this was a back-and-forth game. I'll show you just an example of it to start the game. 49 seconds in, Brock Harner gets a 68-yard pass from Gavin Zimbelman for the touchdown. It's 7-0 Aurora to start. Then later on, about 6:27 left in the first quarter, DeAndre Holiday gets a 55-yard pass from Tyler Jarnigan. That's a 7-7 game. Back and forth, halftime score 14-13 Aurora. 3 seconds left, third quarter. DeAndre Holiday again gets a 17-yard touchdown pass from Jarnigan. It's 20-14 Benedictine. The teams trade a touchdown for Aurora and a field goal for Benedictine. And then in the fourth quarter, halfway through, Alex Lopez, a 9-yard touchdown pass from Jarnigan, makes it 30-21 Benedictine. So now it's a 9-point game. This is pretty much over, right? Well, Gavin Zimbelman decides to take things into his own hands quite often here. First, a 2-yard touchdown run by him makes it 30-28. And look what happens here on this ensuing kickoff.
Trail by 2. Here's the kickoff by Kerr. There's a pooch kick, and the Spartans come up with it. No way! They did this last week twice against the Cougars, and the Spartans come up with it, and they take it all the way down.
They kick it where nobody was. They recover the ball. Unreal. And as a result,
great call.
109 left. Absolutely was. They did it the previous week too. Gavin Zimbelman again with a 4-yard touchdown run. What power he tried to put behind some of these runs. He's not just a great arm, folks. 36-30, Aurora has the lead. And then at the end of the game, Tyler Jarnigan intercepted by Jeffrey Williams at the goal line on this Hail Mary attempt. That's the final, 36-30 in favor of Aurora. Again, stats on the screen. Before I get to the rest of these scores, though, JB, these are the types of games we love to see, and they're not anomalies. We're seeing so many of them this spring season.
Yeah, and this is almost like a 1 versus 2, kind of top 2 seeds and what would have been like a crossover tournament type of situation. Although, Lakeland undefeated still, they're going to make a strong case for that division championship or conference title, what have you. But yeah, I mean, Zimbelman's arm kind of gave him a little trouble with through 3 picks, had to kind of adjust his game and kind of use that big offensive line to help him get in the end zone on some rushing plays for a change. But I'm sure he'll rebound. It's certainly one of those things that not everyone has their best days, but he still able to get the job done and get his team a win.
Also in the NACC, Eureka 26, Concordia Chicago 3, as three passing touchdowns by Eureka's Nathan Garrard in that game, and a 55-yard pick 6 for Jack Arnett. Lakeland 62, Wisconsin Lutheran 14. I think Lakeland remains perfect at 3-0 if memory serves here, and I'm confirming it on my screen here too. Charlotte's Nunnery with the 4 touchdown day, plus a rushing touchdown on top of the 4 passing touchdowns for him. We see Rockford in the NACC, 20-14 win over Concordia, Wisconsin. Concordia tried to come back in this game for a second straight week, but they failed on this one as Rockford led 20-0 at the half. Concordia's quarterback, though, James Lynn, had 60 passing attempts in that game. So you can see where the offensive strategy was there, especially as they fell back in that game. In the ARC, Central beat Simpson 49-14 as Central outgained Simpson 495-319 in total yards. Blaine Hawkins with a 21 for 27 day, 193, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Loras 45, Luther 21 as Loras moves to 2-0. Loras trailed 21-14 with 13-18 in the third quarter. Scored 31 unanswered points. Parker Kaiser with 26 rushes, 104 yards in that game. Final page, here we go in the Heartland. Rose-Hulman 34, Franklin 14 as Rose-Hulman moves to 3-1 in the battle of one-loss teams prior to this game. Their defense had 3 interceptions and 4 sacks. Shane Welshins 33 rushes, 159 and a touchdown. A pick 6 as well by Michael Stevens for Rose-Hulman. Defiance 42, Anderson 19. Defiance outgained Anderson 523-324 in yardage. And Navarius Williams and Tyshawn Freeman combined for Defiance with 34 rushes, 240 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Mount St. Joseph 47, Bluffton 21. Interesting, Bluffton just can't get it back together again. It seems like, I think that's 3 in a row for them that they've lost now. Josh Taylor for Mount St. Joseph with 227 yards passing, 183 rushing, 6 total touchdowns on the day. Back to the videotape. You want overtime? We got overtime for you. A lot of it. Here it goes. Milliken at Augustana. The game ended as 14-14. We go straight to overtime 1. Augustana starts overtime 1 with the ball. Alec Jacobs gets a 10-yard touchdown run. It's a 21-14 game. Milliken responds, though. Colton Lockwood gets the 11-yard pass from Cal Porte, or Cal Port, I think is the correct pronunciation. Makes it 21-21. The flag you saw was defensive pass interference flag. They did not go for 2, nope. In overtime number 2, Milliken starts with the ball. Marion McGee with a 6-yard touchdown run. It's 28-21 Milliken. Augustana responds. Jacob Brooks with a 10-yard touchdown run. 28-28. They chose also not to go for 2, even though they'd be forced to in the third overtime. They started with ball to Augustana in one play. Bobby and Sarah with a 25-yard pass from Jacobs makes it 34-28 after the conversion rush by Jacobs failed. Milliken has a chance here. Marion McGee, 5-yard run is good. It's 34-34, but they get the first attempt at a 2-point conversion, holding called. And so they have to go and try it again and fail. So after 3 overtimes, we are still tied 34-34. Milliken starts with the ball in the 4th overtime. There's that Marion McGee again for the 3rd time in overtimes, getting the touchdown on the ground. It's now 40-34 Milliken after Port's pass failed. But here's the last play, 4th and 10 for Augustana. Alec Jacobs is incomplete. Milliken wins the game in 4 overtimes, 40-34. And you can see the stats right there. Just back and forth, up and down. Again, another fantastic finish this week. Augustana was trying for that was their first lead, I think, of the season, actually, they had taken in overtime. They just couldn't hold on for. Finally, in a non-conference game, Martin Luther 34, Ripon 16. Ripon had led 10-0 until Martin Luther said, hey, it's our game here. 34 points in a row by them in that game. That is crunch time for week 9 of the spring 2021 Division III college football season. Okay, buddy. Plenty of video clips there, but luckily the time shrinks a little bit as we lose some games here, and we're going to lose some more over the next 2 weeks. Not from just cancellations, but just schedule shrinkage as conferences, you pointed out earlier, are going into the clubhouse basically now. We'll see a couple, or maybe just one USA South game involving Brevard Sewanee essentially coming up, but not much else there. It's going to kind of be the UMAC Midwest Conference show coming up once we get about 2 to 3 weeks out from where we are right now and championships get handed out elsewhere. We brought it up earlier. Wesley needs an opponent, folks. And if you know a team willing to play Wesley at Wesley on April 17th or that weekend, please step forward and help them get a game, because it would really suck at this point that they cannot continue or cannot end in a way that we were hoping they could. Stevenson had scheduled the game with them, and Stevenson had scheduled a game against a conference opponent, Alvernia, for last weekend. That game got postponed to this weekend, which unfortunately was the weekend they were supposed to play Wesley. So, okay, you just bumped that game, right, to the next week. No, because there was a Susquehanna game scheduled by Stevenson for the following weekend, the weekend of the 17th. So if that game does play, then Wesley loses their opponent and loses their final home game and final game, period. They'll play an inter-squad scrimmage, I guess, in the alternative, but that would not be the way people would want to go out, obviously. Make your plea to teams out there, because I think you can put it better than even I can about what this can mean for Wesley and for anybody that steps forward here.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great opportunity on multiple levels. I mean, if, let's say worst case scenario, you schedule the game and Wesley wins, you get to play against one of the longstanding best programs in the East-South region for the last 2 decades. And, there's no shame in that. Plus you give those kids the opportunity to get some game tape and really test yourself against what's been, one of the standards of excellence in Division III. Flip side is, let's say you win the game, that's quite a feather in your cap. And while it would, sure, it would be disappointing for the Wesley players to lose in their final home game, at least they had a chance to play and a chance to win in the game, in their backyard. Really, either way, I think is certainly a very positive, message and certainly something that could be, a great opportunity on both levels. At the end of the day, football is about competition. You want to get to be, a better program. You gotta be able to play and beat programs that have, been sort of the standard bearers like Wesley anyway. So give it a shot and see where you're at.
Like I said, couldn't said it better myself, and I hope the team does step forward and takes up the challenge on this one. So, Presley Egbers, we showed it. We're going to show it to you again. Here it is. Unbelievable job to collect the ball. But once you talk with him, you realize this guy is that person that's got the mental ability to know, oh my God, I've got to take responsibility and accountability here and get this ball and go with it, ultimately. It just really, when you meet him and talk with him, you understand how this play even transpired, hands down. And so we asked him about this play and to kind of take us through it.
Yeah, well, it was a play that we ran a lot in practice that week, and it was a play that we were designed to, we could either go one way and hit the edge, or we could hit it up the middle. And at the last second, I decided to pull it, and the guy that was running the ball, he was kind of clamping onto the ball a little bit, so the ball kind of popped up in the air, and I saw it, and I was like, so I picked it up and grabbed it, and I was like, I got to go. And by that time I saw it, I was like, it's wide open. And the rest is history. You know, the offensive line did a great job being able to create that hole. So
I gotta go.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that.
Yeah, it was sort of like straight out of one of those, football movies or Varsity Blues or something like that kind of thing. It was just so surreal at the moment there because you're down. You basically need to score to win the game. Ball pops up, and like you said, you sort of wide open up, and you ran right into the end zone. I mean, Presley, tell us a little bit about what it's been like, for the Yellow Jackets in this spring season. Obviously, not the same as prior years, but one thing that was kind of unique, you got to play in what was the first ever ODAC Conference Championship game. It's hard to believe that this Old Dominion Virginia Conference has been around for so long, and this is actually the very first time there's been a true championship game. What was this spring like for you, and what was it like kind of leading up to knowing that, hey, if we can keep this thing rolling, we have a chance to play for a title and ultimately on your own home field?
Yeah, so when we first heard we weren't going to have a season in the fall, over the summer, we were all kind of, disappointed. We all kind of saw it coming, but, hearing it for the first time, it was kind of heartbreaking to a lot of guys on the team because we all go to Randolph-Macon because we love football, That's the one thing that, makes everyone go to Randolph-Macon is that we're a football school. And, so when we first heard that we weren't going to have a season, we were all kind of disappointed. And, we took that as a negative and we turned it into a positive, and we worked, I'd say, as hard as we ever have this past fall, the whole entire semester. And we didn't even know if we were going to play a spring season. So at that point, so there were times where we thought, what are we doing this for? And, are the seniors going to be able to play their last season with us? But we kept our heads down. We came to work every single day. And I couldn't be more prouder of a group of guys that came together and were able to accomplish something as big as this. We didn't even know if we were going to get all 5 games in throughout the middle of the season. It could have gotten canceled at any point. A lot of people tested positive or whatever. So it was a really, mentally exhausting, year for our whole team, and emotionally and physically, especially as well. So, but we all came together as a team, and Coach always says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And, that's what we did. We went together as a team, and everybody on the team did their job. And Coach always preaches that as well, do your job and everything's going to work out just fine. So, I'm so proud of our group of guys. Defense played lights out on Saturday, and they're really the MVPs of that game. So they had our backs all season long whenever we needed them, and it was a great team effort we put out there on Saturday.
I want to ask you more about the game in a second, actually. You brought up a little bit about kind of the progression over the last, 2 years. But not everybody realizes you started 6 games in your freshman year, your freshman season in 2019, at least according to the stats. I think you played 8 games total. And to have that happen, it takes a level of confidence in a quarterback, especially in the ODAC, that is unique. And so you play those games, you, as you said, almost lose the entirety of fall and spring, but you get spring back. What level of importance is that spring for your progression, Presley, moving forward? And how do you think it makes you in terms of skill level compared to other quarterbacks that might not have been as fortunate to play this spring?
Yeah, well, any game that you're able to play in gives you more experience. And, when I first heard that we were going to be able to play a 5-game season possibly, the first thing I thought of was, more opportunities to get better, more opportunities for our team to get better. And, we were going into the spring season basically saying, hey, no matter what happens, we're getting ready to go for fall of 2021. We're getting ready, we're getting prepared, and these games just added a lot more, of a level for us to, improve. And I feel like we improved every single game over the course of the season. And in my mind, I still didn't think we played a full game on offense, defense, and special teams, all 5 of those and any of those games. So looking back on that, it was a great opportunity for our team to be able to get those 5 free games. And looking forward to the fall, we're able to really, we really took a big step being able to play this spring.
Yeah, well, I will sort of challenge you a little bit there because I saw what your offense did against your rivals, Hampden-Sydney, and that was a pretty lopsided box score when you looked at the number of yards that your offense put up compared to theirs. But this Emory and Henry team, their last D3 game, and they came to play, and they did their best to try to win this game. What's it like for you as a quarterback, trying to lead an offense when basically, let's face it, you guys were struggling for most of the game. It was a really defensive battle. You have to give the Wasps some credit. They really made some big plays, and they made things challenging for you guys there. But, of course, you got that touchdown pass there about 9 minutes and 40 seconds or so into the fourth quarter. Was that sort of the initial spark of like, oh, okay, we can do this. Like we've been struggling for 3 quarters, but we got the score. Let's kind of finish this thing off.
Yeah, well, we knew that they were going to be a really good defense going in. We watched a lot of film on them throughout the whole week, and they're fast guys. You got some big guys up front. They're guys, second-level guys, linebackers. They can fly around a little bit. So we knew going into the game that it was going to be a tough game. And Coach told us before the game, look, this is going to be a game that it's going to come down to the end, and we're going to have to play all 4 quarters if, we're going to want to come out on top. So at times when, we would drive and then we'd stall out, it was, frustrating, obviously, for our offense. Defense had our back all game long. And, I can't, thank them enough for playing such a great game. Hats off to them for playing such a great game and having our back the whole entire game. But when it got down to the fourth quarter, we're always told, we're built for 4 quarters. We're not built for the first half. We're not built, to get off to a slow start. So it's a full 4-quarter game, and we had to keep our heads in the game. And actually, it went longer than 4 quarters. So we had to stay in the game mentally. It was an exhausting game, and there we had really good defense, sure, but we had a really good defense as well. So
let's go back to the play. We got to talk about what happens after, because we've seen numerous angles, we've seen the celebration, we've seen plenty of it, but. I mean, what happens after a situation like that? I'm sure the exhaustion didn't really kick in initially with the adrenaline that went through. What's been the reaction, in Yellow Jackets Nation and everything else that you've been a part of the last couple of days since scoring that touchdown?
Well, when something like that happens, emotions kind of take over. Like you said, the exhaustion didn't really set in until a while after, but it just all comes to fruition finally that all of our hard work that we did in the fall, that we did in the winter months, January, February, it all was starting to pay off. And we knew it was going to pay off, and we knew that it was going to take a little time to see, be able to reap the benefits of those. But Coach always tells us every day, there's a difference between delayed gratification and getting gratification immediately. And if you wait and you delay your gratification, at the end, it's going to be so much greater. So, it's hard to look at it from that mindset, but if you do look at it from that mindset, at the end of the day, it really is something special that, you and your team can, be able to reap the benefits of. And that's what we were able to do, working out this entire fall and coming back in the spring and, staying the course, keeping our head in it. And, we were able to come out on top.
So what's next for the Yellow Jackets, Presley? I mean, I imagine you guys are enjoying a little bit of the off season now. You'll have a little break, but August and preseason camp isn't too far down the road. I mean, is there going to be like a little downtime for you guys, or is it we're going to enjoy this win for a couple more days and it's back to work and getting ready for the 2021 campaign?
Yeah, well, this is the shortest turnaround we've ever had in a season before, going from a spring season right into the fall of the same year. So we're going to have probably a couple more days off, and then we're going to get right back to work. Coach always tells us you can't get complacent, and, just because we won doesn't mean we're going to win next fall either. So we got to get right back to work and, heal all of our bumps and bruises over the next 2 or 3 days, and then we're right back to work. So we're getting ready to go for the fall of 2021.
Got to ask you one thing. I become friends with the ODAC commissioner, assistant commissioner, Brad Bankston and J.J. Nekloff over the years from my involvement with the Stag Bowl when it was in Salem especially. who was actually chatting with JJ the other day via text. The job they've done in not just football, but in all the sports seems to be second to none. We've seen some real problem children conferences out there, not naming names, but your conference seemed to go, lights out, completely okay. And I mean, between the web streams that were quality and the Friday night action, and like you said, most of the games got played, everything else. What do you have to say to the ODAC and to Randolph-Macon itself for the administration buying into this and going forward with it, because not all ODAC schools did so?
Yeah, well, first off, the ODAC does a great job of being able to, like you said, be able to put all these things together. I know it took a lot of hard work. I know it took a lot of thought to put in. Is it going to be worth playing 5 games, and whether it's going to pay off or not, but. I know our entire football program at Randolph-Macon is so grateful for our administration, for able to let us play these games. And they don't know how happy it makes us to be able to go out and practice together. And because, we can't go into each other's rooms. We can't go off campus together. We can't do many things with our teammates. So practice was the only way that we could see each other. And, being able to play a game that you love with your teammates, and that's the only time you get to see them, you can't ask for anything more than that. And I can't thank our administration and the school enough for what they were able to let us do this spring. It means so much to our program, and it meant a lot to our staff and all of our players for all the hard work that we put in. So,
awesome. I'm listening to you, and everything you've said is like tremendous, and Coach Arusa should be thrilled that you quote him back quite often. It's just it amazes me. You are a sophomore who is more poised than many seniors that we have on this show. You're going to go far if you keep that up, my friend, not just on the football field but elsewhere. What is your major, out of curiosity?
I'm a business major with a concentration in finance.
Hey, JB,
so my whole family's
sign him up.
In business.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You got a banker down there. I'm a lawyer and a land developer. You don't want to bother with me. Talk to him. But anyway, we're going to give a chance here, as we do for all of our student athletes, for shout-outs, any family, friends, teammates, coaches, significant others, anybody that might be watching. Presley Egbers, the floor is yours.
I have so many shout-outs to make, but I can just, shout out everyone that's helped, me personally get here. And, especially at Randolph-Macon, our whole coaching staff, I can't, put into words how much they mean to this program and how much of an impact they have on our players. This whole year was really hard for us. It was, probably one of the hardest years that any team has ever had to go through. Not just our team, but any team in the ODAC being able to, play all these games. We can't take any overnight trips. So we had to go long distances on the same day at some time. So, but I can't give enough credit to our whole program, the way that we were able to, weather the storm when things weren't going our way in the fall, in January and February before the season started, and even throughout the season. Like I said, I haven't been in any of my teammates' rooms. I haven't, hung out with them at all outside of football this entire year. And that's something that, took a lot of time for guys to get used to. And, it was really, sometimes you're not having a great day and you just want to go talk to a teammate, but you really can't. So, you had to make things, happen. And a lot of social distancing, a lot of wearing masks. We were outside lifting in the 35-degree weather in the fall because we couldn't be inside. So, a lot of people say our generation's not that tough, but, Yellow Jacket football is toughness. It's the definition of toughness. And I can't, I just can't give enough credit to our team and our program for the way we were able to handle this whole year. So,
okay, give me your view on Presley Egbers, because I was blown away by the maturity in this interview. I got to be honest with you.
I mean, this, like I was saying before, this show is about, we're starting to get into sort of the championship weeks and weekends here. Presley is definitely even though he's a very young man, still has ways to go in his football career. he's a champion, and he has the mindset of a champion, and he led his team to a championship by, you just listen to the guy. He's sort of like the Tom Brady there down in Virginia. It's about the team. It's not, he doesn't take any of the individual credit as much as maybe folks like you and me from the media want to, bestow that upon him. But at the end of the day, that's what you need, leading your football program. I'm sure his coaches and, the other teammates around really appreciate that he is such a modest and humble guy who leads by example and isn't, taking all the credit for the good. And I'm sure, he shoulders some of the burden when they do struggle. And they did for a long time against this soon to be Division II team in Emory and Henry. But hey, I think it's the 12th or maybe the 13th ODAC championship for the Yellow Jackets, but the first time that there's ever a championship game in that conference, which is really interesting. And Frank, maybe if there's one takeaway of this spring season that I would love to see in the fall, let's do more, conference championship games, please, because this has been great. I mean, the SAA, Barry versus Hendricks, outstanding game. This game, outstanding. Even the ASC, although it started off a little lopsided, Hardin Simmons came back and made it interesting. I mean, I think these conference sort of divisional 1 versus 1 games really adds a lot to the sport. And so maybe we'll see some more in the fall, maybe not. I guess it'll, scheduling is still kind of up in the air with COVID and so on, but hopefully we'll get to see some more action like this, because it really makes it so much more exciting when you have, just a little more at stake and you get these great moments that you'll remember for a long time.
I've always said that as the NCAA Division III automatic qualifier system is pushed us down to a certain number of automatic or of at-large bids, that using a conference championship forced system to sort of select teams or knock certain teams out so we could regain some more at-larges in that manner might be the way to go with it ultimately. And we've seen in the old days, what was the old big conference in New England there?
The NEFC, the Bogan and Boyd. The 16 team, they had the 2 8-team divisions. They would play head-to-head, and the winner would get the NEFC automatic bid to the tournament.
And the NCAA allows an extra game if you do that as well. They were allowed to play, I believe, an 11th game as a result of that as well. So it's an interesting idea. If you make a divisional system, though, conferences, please remember, define your tiebreakers very specifically. That's tomorrow's show.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But since this is the YD3 show and we had the best candidate to talk about that, or at least represent that idea, and Presley Egbers, we're going to end the show now while we can save some face here and give you, I think, a good representation of the best of Division III, especially in the football area that we have to offer. So, folks, we'll see you Wednesday and Friday this week. But in the meantime, have a great day.